Lauren Banham, wonderful to have you with us. Can you tell us why, if you think that nuclear disarmament is a particularly feminist issue or an issue for women's leadership?
Well, I think that the role that feminism has in nuclear disarmament is kind of twofold almost. Firstly, I think that when we look at the issue of nuclear weapons, the language particularly that we use is deeply gendered. And I think that the patriarchy thrives on a system in which dominance and strength and protection is deeply associated with masculinity. And when it comes to talking about nuclear disarmament, we often talk about these issues as being something in which we need for protection. And when it comes across like this, we're almost seeing a system in which women and women's issues are being kind of pushed aside as emotional and weak. And when we associate not having nuclear weapons with being weak, and the whole argument for saving lives and for potential turmoil that could be associated with nuclear weapons as being a weak argument or as being overly sympathetic or not understanding of the complexities, we are in a way almost associating it with the discrimination that the patriarchy pushes onto women. And even further than this, I think when we live in a world in which the threat of violence and the threat of being able to incite so much terror with nuclear weapons from our governments, patriarchal systems thrive on being able to threaten and being able to basically, in a way, push down those arguments by saying that, you know, we need these to be able to be dominant. And in lots of ways, that's an issue that's associated with the patriarchy and with the female struggle. As well as this, we're seeing that if in situations where nuclear weapons and where nuclear wars would end up, you know, being an issue where we would see a lot of crisis displacement, we know that in those situations, women are massively disproportionately affected by those things in terms of sexual violence and in terms of the way that women's health issues are treated when they are displaced from where they're coming from, and the way that the burden of those issues is placed upon women. So obviously we've got the issue that the patriarchy thrives on a system of dominance and a system of being able to threaten, and we've also got the fact that women would be disproportionately affected by the violence that would be incited. And also we know that feminism is about intersectionality. It's about paying attention to the different elements of our identity that make up discrimination. And when we look at the people who are affected by things like nuclear testing of nuclear weapons, we'll see that it's, again, that patriarchal social hierarchy that determines who is affected by that and whose human lives are valued more. So when we look at where they're testing nuclear weapons, you're seeing it's indigenous lands, it's communities of people of colour who are affected by that. And I think that's what makes it a feminist issue, is the fact that it's women that will be disproportionately affected, it's a patriarchal system being reinforced, and it's the value of lives, the value of human lives being placed in a hierarchy.
Good answer. Okay, so the issue of feminism and the patriarchy wasn't really around in the 1980s when Peace Child started, but then neither was the issue of climate change or the issue of global pandemics. So we now have these three existential threats to human survival, to the survival of life on our planet. Which do you think is the most serious and the one that we should be paying most attention to?
Well, I think obviously when you look at those three separate threats to humanity, you know, it's so easy to be kind of just like enveloped in the terror and the fear of it all, because it is all terrifying stuff. Nuclear war, pandemics, as we've seen over the past year, you know, we've lived through it, and the climate crisis are all issues that are, quite frankly, when you look at the whole of it, terrifying. And so it's not that I could sit here and go, well, this is a clear-cut, more serious existential threat. But I think that we have to understand that if we don't tackle the climate crisis, if we don't tackle nuclear weapons, and if we don't tackle the inequality that the pandemic has uprooted and has made it much clearer, then all of these are going to be issues that will mean that our lives will not look the same in any way in future generations. I think that at the moment, what's being done about the climate crisis needs to be our priority, because otherwise what our lives look like in future generations just will simply, be radically different, and we're going to get past a point where there is no going back. Arguably, it's the same with nuclear weapons. We're going to get past a point where there isn't any way it can be undone. But in terms of policy and action and legislation, I think that the climate crisis has to be the number one priority, because if we don't tackle the climate crisis, then at the end of the day, there's not going to be much other, there isn't going to be other threats facing humanity.
Gotcha. As you know, we're in the middle of writing Peace Child 2.0, the new Peace Child story. And the internet is the new game in town. So how do you think that the internet and the digital United Nations could be a game changer?
So when it comes to these threats to humanity, we know that education is not only education, but raising awareness is key on these issues. And I know we've said that for a while, but the UN is founded on a principle of we the peoples. And at the moment, it's we, the one or two people in every community that are actually aware of not only what is going on, but what it is we can do about it. And so the absolute, the divide that's been created between governing bodies like the UN and we the people is far too wide for us to actually have any hope of uniting together to create a solution. Whereas if we are able to utilize technology and create a digital UN, or create a platform in which everyone can be aware of what's going on and what it is we can do about it, that is where we'll be able to see, that place where we're able to create lasting change, where we're able to come up with creative solutions and utilize the force of our communities, the force of the people who were originally accredited to being a part of the UN, that we the peoples that was talked about by Clement Attlee, and that was talked about at the first ever United Nations conferences and assemblies. That's what we need to focus on, because at the end of the day, if we're trying to tackle these issues with the 1% of people, and without any kind of unity between us, then I don't think that we're going to be getting anywhere. Am I hopeful that our generation can create change that will eliminate nuclear weapons? Yes. We've seen the passion of this generation, and the work that generations before us have done, and understanding the depth of that is key. But I believe that my generation's ability to create solutions and to unite against an issue, or to unite against oppression and against the violence incited by nuclear weapons, I believe that this generation has the ability to create solutions against that, to create solutions that will eliminate nuclear weapons. Am I hopeful that that can occur under particular leadership at the moment and particular systems that we operate in? Perhaps not so much, but am I hopeful that my generation can come up with solutions and can create new systems in which change is effective and possible? Yes, I am. And would it be, an absolute victory if we could eliminate nuclear weapons? Yes, and I 100% believe that this generation has the ability and the passion and the drive to do so.
Thank you very much, Lauren.